Welcome to Let's Talk with me, Sally Lockwood, my new show where we do a deep dive into one of the big global news stories of the week. And this week we're going to be talking about Jeff in Venice, the wedding between billionaire Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez, which has got so many people talking, not least because of its eye-watering price tag, but also, of course, those protests in Venice. So we're going to be lifting the veil on all of that with someone who knows Venice extremely well, Enrica Rocca. Let's bring her in. Ciao, Enrica. Mi senti?
Ciao Sally, che bello vederti.
Sì, sono proprio contenta che ci sei, grazie mille. Now, I have to say, for full disclosure, Enrica is an old friend of mine. We first met because I attended your cooking school, which is very well known. But Enrica is, from one of the oldest, most prestigious families in Venice, I would say. Your family have a palazzo on one of the canals there. You're a true Venetian. And few people know the city as well as you in terms of, you've also run big international A-list events there. So we're going to get into all of this, okay, Enrica? Let's kick off with the fact that Venice was full of Hollywood A-listers, as it has been before. Of course, there was the wedding with George Clooney. It's an incredible setting for an event like that. How do you spend an estimated $40 to $50 million in 3 days on 200 guests in Venice?
And Sally, I tried this morning to calculate, what that divided by 200 people. I think he had about 200 guests. I don't think it is possible that they spent that much money. I would actually put the number around the 10 million euros, which is a bit more than in dollars, $12 million. I don't think they could have possibly spent a lot more than that. It's not the first time that, billionaires come and celebrate the weddings in Venice, particularly Indian billionaires. So now there is this this wedding costed $30 million. And then when you speak with the organizers, that the amount was much more reasonable. Even if you put 100, let's say that for each guest you spend in 3 days 100,000 euros, which is already a huge amount, that would be $20 million. So I really think that a good number is between 10 and 15.
Okay, but let's throw in 90 private jets that apparently were involved in this wedding and a lot of security detail, I imagine. And I can imagine the costs rack up, but it's still hard to get your head around that figure. Tell us about the hotels that were used, the event spaces. I mean, they were the most exclusive places in town.
Listen, all the places they used are venues which are regularly used for events. The first day, I think, was La Fondazione Cini, which is on the island of San Giorgio, which is used for many, many events. So it's not a venue that was opened exclusively for him. Then they used the kiosk which is beautiful, of the church in Calareggio, which is called La Madonna dell'Orto. It's also a venue that anybody can rent. It's privately owned by an American lady, and it's a beautiful space. And yes, the third was the Arsenale, which is also, again, has been used for Indian weddings before. So he didn't use any venues which were exclusively open for him.
Let's talk about all the Hollywood A-listers that were in town. So there was Oprah, Kim K, Orlando, Leo. It was full of some of the biggest names in Hollywood. Is there a lot of excitement in Venice when weddings like this come to town?
During every single year, the first 2 weeks of September, there is an international film festival on the Lido. Every September we have the city is full of A-list stars, so it's not a novelty. Often they stay at the Cipriani because it's more discreet than to be in a hotel on the Grand Canal at the Gritti or the Aman. But we are used to have a lot of film stars, Hollywood stars in Venice. It's not a novelty.
Which celebrities caught your eye in the coverage from the wedding? Did you have a look at the outfits or anything?
I didn't see so many photos of the events, honestly. But, I mean, it's all the people that were there. Leonardo DiCaprio, it's not the first time that Leonardo DiCaprio is in Venice. Oprah, they had all already been there.
Did you see the dress? Bespoke Dolce & Gabbana? Did you see the wedding
Yes.
dress?
Beautiful.
Thoughts?
Sally, you know me too well. You know what? I'm not a politically correct thing, so if you push me, I will say
This is YouTube. You can say what you want. What did you think?
what I think. And I think she had far too much plastic surgery for, and well, that's what I think. But the dress was beautiful.
You mentioned there was a shoe shop in town that did particularly well out of Jeff Bezos' guests.
There is a shoe shop, I will not mention the brand, that made over €1 million in sales just with the Bezos guests. So, I mean, it probably takes them normally 5 months to do that turnover.
On the whole, do you feel the impact of a wedding like this on the city, or is it more just the newspapers make out that, it's taken over the city, Jeff Bezos' wedding, it's become a circus? Is that the reality?
Sally, you're a journalist. You know that the press can actually create more chaos than anyone else. Look, the city of Venice has hosted many billionaires events in the past, and nobody ever knew anything about it because I sent you last night the link to the webpage of Lanza Baucina, who are the organizers of 99% of these huge events. They are so discreet that their website is a black page with nothing. No information, no photos. They don't even have an account on Instagram, nothing. The Lanza brothers, who are the owners of Lanza Baucina, for the first time in the history of their company, they broke silence and gave an interview to calm people down.
And why did they need to calm people down, Enrica? What was the vibe?
I think that honestly, it wasn't a protest about him on his guest. It was very probably a protest about Amazon and what the impact that Amazon has.
Fundamentally, it seemed like it was a protest against Amazon, right? Then there were other more peripheral issues, but certainly one of them was the issue of over-tourism. And if you look at the numbers of people that visit Venice every year, and then the numbers of people who actually live there, you can see why perhaps there is more of a focus on tourism than on the residents. So tell me how Venice has changed since the Venice that you knew growing up there.
When I grew up in Venice, there were about 150 to 160,000 residents. Now there is less than 50,000. And we have 33 million tourists. So, the disproportion is terrible. But Venice is not the only city who is protesting about tourism. Amsterdam has the same problem, and so does Barcelona. They also try to limit. So it's not only Venice, it's everywhere.
So when we saw the protests in the headlines, Enrica, in the lead up to Jeff Bezos' wedding, what were this group of protesters upset about?
I was in Venice a few days before. I personally did not see any protest. I did not hear one negative comment about this wedding. So I don't know if, again, things have been a little bit exaggerated by the press, what was actually happening. But for sure, Venice needs events like this to survive in a proper way. We can't only have mass tourists who arrive for the day from camping areas or by bus from the mainland. They bring their picnic. They don't even buy a bottle of water. When it's time for lunch, they sit on a bridge so that you can't go through, or they sit on the windows of shops. I mean, it's horrible. Oh, in San Marco Square, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, there was a guy who started a barbecue in San Marco Square. So, you're right, Marcus did his barbecue,
Wow.
And lit the fire. And it was, it's crazy. Whether these
Well, very convenient for the Rialto market, for the ingredients,
the Rialto
I
market
suppose.
basically doesn't exist anymore because there is no. Well,
What?
I went to the Rialto market 3 weeks ago, and my brother actually said, Enrica, I would suggest that you don't go to Rialto because you're going to cry when you see it. I mean, yeah, it's there is no more Venetians. There is a couple of fishermen who are still there. But
What's happened?
what happened? What happened that there is nobody going shopping. You know, people, the few residents, the tourists eat in restaurants most of the time. Even when they rent they rent an apartment, they maybe cook one evening at the home, if that. Otherwise, they're out. So they don't need to go food shopping.
Set the scene for people who don't know Venice, Enrica. So you've got a cooking school, which you founded in Venice, and you would take your students to the Rialto market and you would show them the best ingredients. You would take them round. There was even a documentary made about you.
I would be ashamed to charge people to take them to the market now.
The Rialto market was such an impressive place. It was just full of these tradesmen selling their produce, and you know, the colours, the smells, the flavours, the atmosphere, and you're saying that barely exists now.
It barely exists, but you know what, Sally, this is not the fault of Amazon or anyone else. This is the fault of the municipality of Venice. Because many of the stores in Venice have asked permission to do what all the markets around the world does, to sell street food, you know, to be able to serve 6 oysters and 2 glasses of Prosecco. How wonderful would it be? You know how many thousands of people would go to Rialto, you know, standing in the market, surrounded by beautiful colors and smells, as you say. But no, in Italy, street food is not allowed. Health and safety regulations don't allow you to do that.
This mass tourism that we're now seeing in really popular spots like Venice, Florence, Rome, it's definitely changed the look and feel of cities like that. Tell me how it's felt in Venice for you as a Venetian.
Venetians don't feel that Venice is their city anymore. You know, it's like a bit of a Disneyland. You know, it's an attraction. But although, I mean, I love it, for example, sometimes I just go and have a gin and tonic in San Marco Square at 7 o'clock at night, because 90% of the people that you see in the streets during a normal day in Venice don't actually sleep in Venice. They are, you know, in camping zones on the Lido. They are in cheap hotels outside of the city. So, you know, that's why we need Jeff Bezos donated apparently 3 million euros to the city.
I was in a very small town that's very popular with tourists in Italy last year. And I know it quite well because I know a lot of the locals. I used to live in Italy. And, you know, the locals were complaining to me. They said, if you need to buy a loaf of bread, you cannot buy it in town anymore. It's tourist shops, it's ice cream shops, it's places where you can buy little weird ornaments that I don't know what you do with them. You know, they can't buy what they need to for their day-to-day needs. And I think that needs to be addressed, you know, not just in Venice, but across Italy. It's an issue, right?
But, you know, it is an issue, but where is the solution? The only solution to preserve those kind of shops would be to not give permission to stores to change from a butcher to a hardware store. If you're a butcher, you need to remain a butcher.
So to conclude, Enrica, just to summarize, you had no issue with the Bezos wedding. In fact, you thought it was a good thing for Venice.
Absolutely.
Given all these A-listers that come through Venice, and, you know, you've had this cooking school there for years, you've had, you know, you've become very well known for it. What A-listers have come to your cooking school? Any that you're allowed to tell us about?
The only A-lister that has come to my cooking class, it was Sylvester Stallone with his wife when he was still married to Jennifer, and their 3 daughters who are wonderful. And that's it.
Did Sylvester Stallone get the proper Enrica treatment? I'm sure there are a few bottles of Prosecco
No, he
opened.
doesn't drink, no carbs.
Wow.
Beautiful cicchetti, they only ate the toppings but not the bread.
Wow. Gosh, that's sad, isn't it? Coming to Italy and not eating carbs.
We were staying
Anyway.
at the Cipriani, and they were spending much more time at the gym than, you know, than by the pool chilling.
Wow. Okay. Well, different strokes for different folks. I can safely say I've never been in a gym in Venice. I've eaten a lot of pasta though. Enrica, thanks so much for coming
It's a
on.
pleasure.
It's been so good to
And
talk to
then
you.
I'll give you a call.
Yeah, give me a call. It's always great to speak to you. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy that you've shared your impolitically correct views with the world. Thanks so much.
Baci.
Ci vediamo presto. Un bacione. Ciao. Grazie Enrica. Ciao, ciao. Thank you so much to you all for tuning in to this episode of Let's Talk this week with Enrica Rocca, discussing the Jeff Bezos wedding in Venice. If you've liked this episode, please subscribe to the show. It's free to subscribe, makes a huge difference to how the channel grows. Like, share this with your friends, leave a comment, let me know what you'd like to hear about next week, and I'll see you then. Thanks again.